Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're looking for, well, the absolute shortest path to being completely and thoroughly informed on the most high-stakes global issues, those cryptic scientific breakthroughs, and maybe the complicated logistical dilemmas happening right now, this deep dive is specifically tailored for you. We've got a really dense, complex stack of source material today. It's spanning everything from a white-collar terror cell uncovered in India to a seismic constitutional coup, essentially, in Pakistan, and ultimately to the biological secrets of a 200-year-old Arctic whale. Quite the range.
It really is. And our mission today is to take that immense diversity of information, all those high-impact headlines, and really distill it down. We want to get to the essential knowledge nuggets, those aha moments, and the crucial context that you need to make sense of it all.
Yeah, we have a huge amount of ground to cover. It requires us to jump between geopolitics and molecular biology, sometimes pretty rapidly in the span of our conversation. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. And the need for clarity amidst this complexity, it's never been higher, has it? So today, we're moving through 9 distinct critical reports, one by one. We're making sure we extract not just the facts, but also the patterns and the profound implications.
For you, the listener, this means really understanding the mechanism behind the shift, whether we're talking about, say, a political power grab or a cellular repair pathway.
Exactly. We're starting with the gravest security matters. First, the critical security situation in South Asia. Then we'll transition through domestic politics and environmental crises before wrapping up with those deep dives into highly complex systems in sports and some pretty groundbreaking science.
Okay, so we really have to begin with a topic of immediate and, frankly, grave concern. We're focusing first on a deadly incident in India's capital and, crucially, how the subsequent investigation has revealed something far more sinister, maybe more sophisticated behind it. #1. The New Delhi car explosion and investigation. So the core facts of the incident itself are grim, and the location seems specifically chosen for its significance. On Monday, a car explosion occurred near New Delhi's iconic Red Fort. Tragically, initial reports from law enforcement said it claimed the lives of at least 8 people. Several vehicles were left charred, and the blast site was, immediately treated as a potential terror attack.
And that location choice, it's inherently strategic, isn't it? The Red Fort isn't just, a historical monument or a busy spot. It's a profound symbol of India's sovereignty, its historical legacy. It's traditionally where the Prime Minister gives the Independence Day address. So targeting a landmark like that sends a very clear message that the capital, and really the country's deepest symbols, they're vulnerable. It suggests a deliberate intent to maximize that psychological impact, create widespread fear and disruption way beyond the immediate casualties.
And the security response certainly reflected that gravity. Police immediately cordoned off the entire area for forensic examination. Prime Minister Narendra Modi publicly condemned the act, pledged the utmost seriousness in bringing those responsible to justice. What kind of evidence would forensic teams be prioritizing in a situation like this? What are they actually looking for on the ground?
Well, they're looking for specific signatures beyond, obviously, the immediate identification of the victims and counting fatalities. And we should note, later sources suggest that final count might actually be higher, maybe around 10 killed.
Okay.
The forensic teams, they're laser focused on the explosive device itself. They need to figure out the type of explosive used. Was it military grade? Or was it, an improvised mix, something cobbled together?
Right, the how.
Exactly. And the method of detonation timer, remote control, suicide bomber. Also, crucially, where did the materials come from? Every fragment, every scorch mark, every tiny chemical trace is being analyzed. And on top of that, security agencies are locked into reviewing surveillance footage. There's a dense network of cameras around the Red Fort, so they're trying to piece together a timeline. Where did the vehicle originate? Who parked it? Who walked away? All those critical details.
And beyond the forensics, this kind of incident instantly ratchets up the threat level across major urban centers, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The immediate so what for the public is a massive increase in vigilance. Authorities subsequently urged everyone to report any suspicious activity.
Yeah.
It's a necessary step trying to rebuild that sort of fragile layer of civic trust that gets shattered immediately by an attack in such a high-profile place.
Yeah.
But as serious as the isolated incident is, the investigation quickly became the key, really, to unlocking a much broader security crisis, and one that's, truly shocking in its composition.
Which brings us directly to the next headline, this terrifying shift in recruitment profiles that the investigation uncovered. #2, the uncovering of a white-collar terror module. Yeah, this is where the narrative shifts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From the tragedy of the event itself to the, well, chilling details of the alleged perpetrators. The investigation, which was triggered by that deadly Red Fort blast, and this source actually clarifies it, resulted in 10 killed and over 20 injured.
Okay, so higher numbers confirmed there.
Right. It uncovered what authorities are calling a white-collar terror module, and the central figure arrested is a Dr. Shaheen Shahid.
And this is it's a radical departure from the established terror profiling we often hear about. Dr. Shaheen Shahid was a former medical college lecturer from Lucknow. We're talking about a highly educated professional, someone integrated into, the upper echelons of society.
Incredible.
She was arrested for allegedly heading the Indian wing of Jaish-e-Mohammed's GEM's women's outfit, which is known as Jamaatul Momineen.
Okay, let's pause on that for a second. GEM, Jaish-Mohammed, they have a long, brutal history of high-profile, devastating attacks across the region. Why would a major group like GEM specifically pivot to recruiting high-profile female professionals like a doctor? What's the tactical advantage for them in doing that?
Well, it fundamentally changes the entire counterterrorism doctrine you need to track them. Recruiting educated professionals, especially doctors, it offers, I think, 3 enormous tactical advantages. First, there's the logistical cover. A professional, particularly a woman in maybe a more conservative society, can move with far less suspicion than the typical profile investigators might look for.
Right, blends in more easily.
Second, the skill set. A doctor has intrinsic knowledge of chemistry, biology, sometimes access to sophisticated equipment or chemicals. That could potentially be leveraged for bomb making or even theoretically bioterror research. And third, the psychological impact. The sheer shock of a medical professional, someone trusted by the community, being revealed as a high-level militant, that acts as a powerful propaganda tool for radicalization. It suggests the cause transcends class or background.
And her specific mandate was highly strategic, wasn't it? It points to a kind of doctrinal shift within GEM itself. She was allegedly tasked directly by Sadia Azhar, who is the sister of GEM founder Masood Azhar.
Right. High-level connection.
To establish a network focused specifically on radicalization and recruitment led by women inside India.
Yes, exactly. The focus was mobilization, using social media, maintaining covert communication channels with handlers across the border. But Shaheen, it turns out, was just the tip of this network. Her arrest actually followed the detention of 2 other professionals, Dr. Muzammil Ahmad Ghanai and a Dr. Umar Yunabi, both affiliated with Faridabad's Al-Falah University.
So this isn't just one person. We're looking at an established interstate network. It's spanning Uttar Pradesh and Haryana, linked by academic and professional credentials.
That's the picture emerging.
And the whole investigation thread, it actually started back in October, didn't it? With those GEM posters popping up in Srinagar's Naugam area. That led to Muzammil's arrest and the recovery of an A-47 and explosives. How did Shaheen then connect to that initial arrest? What was the link?
Well, it seems Shaheen was providing crucial logistical support. Investigators discovered that her car had actually been used by Dr. Muzammil. And when they found the car, it contained a rifle and live cartridges.
Ah, the physical link.
That car was the physical link connecting the 2 doctors, providing that initial hard evidence against her. Then, subsequent raids at her residence in Lucknow reportedly yielded mobile phones, a hard disk, and sensitive documents related to the operation.
What's truly jarring about her profile, though, is that contrast between her alleged criminal activities and her professional background. She was described by people who knew her as brilliant but withdrawn, with appointments at prestigious institutions like GSVM Medical College and Kannauj Government Medical College.
Exactly. Her peers, her family, they were reportedly shocked. I mean, she had a strong academic trajectory. However, the source material does note a really significant timeline detail. She apparently went on unauthorized leave back in 2013 and was formally terminated only in 2021.
Wow, that's an 8-year gap.
That 8-year window is critical, isn't it?
Yep.
It suggests that her alleged radical transformation wasn't maybe a rapid thing, but potentially a slow burn that spanned a significant portion of the last decade. It allowed her perhaps to build a new life, operate away from scrutiny. The sources also mentioned she divorced her husband in 2015 and relocated, which could have been part of establishing this new operational base down in Faridabad.
The authority taking over the case is also significant here, the NIA.
Yes, the National Investigation Agency. The NIA handles India's most complex terror cases, especially those that cross state lines or have international links. So this gives them the comprehensive authority needed to investigate the full depth of her ties across Lucknow, Kanpur, Faridabad, wherever the leads take them.
So the core insight here really is that counterterrorism strategies have to adapt and adapt rapidly to this new reality. The threat isn't just external or from marginalized groups anymore, it's potentially highly integrated, leveraging social trust and professional skills.
It's a major wake-up call, isn't it? Particularly regarding domestic radicalization pathways among educated professionals.
Okay, let's shift our geopolitical focus now westward to Pakistan. Here we see internal security crises being, well, rapidly externalized and used to fuel diplomatic standoffs. Hashtag 3, Pakistan security crisis and diplomatic fallout. So Pakistan has faced a severe wave of internal instability, highlighted recently by two major security incidents on November 11, 2025. First, a deadly suicide bombing right outside the Islamabad district judicial complex, killing 12 people.
Right, in the capital.
And second, an assault on a cadet college down in Wana, which is right near the Afghan border. Now, these events seem to demand a measured, focused response to internal threats, wouldn't you say?
You would think so. Yet the response from Islamabad was anything but measured. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif moved with remarkable speed and, frankly, aggression to blame India for both attacks. He alleged India's state-sponsored terrorism, and even went so far as to claim the Afghan Taliban was operating as India's proxy.
Those are enormous claims, and they were disseminated immediately via the state-run Associated Press of Pakistan, the APP. Crucially, the sources we have make it very clear that these claims entirely lack supporting evidence at the time they were made. Sharif asserted Indian-backed militants were responsible and specifically tried to link the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, a persistent domestic insurgent group, to India, even branding them Fitna al-Hindustan.
Yeah, the strategic value of this immediate externalization is pretty clear, isn't it? When you're facing a devastating domestic security crisis, attacks in the capital, attacks on military installations near the border, Pakistan's leadership often defaults to diverting blame outwards.
Yeah. Why? What does it achieve for them politically?
Well, it serves to try and unite a potentially fractured domestic audience against a common external enemy. And, importantly, it deflects criticism regarding the leadership's own failure to contain groups like the TTP or to manage that increasingly volatile border situation with the Taliban-led Afghan government next door.
India's reaction was, predictably, sharp. The Ministry of External Affairs, the MEA, strongly rejected the allegations. They called them delirious and predictable. But they went further, didn't they? They directly accused Pakistan of fabricating these false narratives solely to divert international attention from its own severe internal crises. And they specifically pointed to the military-driven constitutional instability, which we're actually about to get into next.
Right. And the rhetoric escalated dramatically on the Pakistani side as well. Defense Minister Khawaja Asif declared the country to be in a state of war, calling the Islamabad bombing a wake-up call. I mean, this is really high-stakes.
State of war, that's serious.
It's very serious. Asif specifically criticized the Taliban-led Afghan government for, in his view, failing to contain cross-border attacks. And he warned that the conflict is no longer confined solely to the frontier regions. He made sure to emphasize the massive sacrifices the Pakistan army is making daily.
So what's the core insight here? Is this just, routine political posturing between neighbors, or does this immediate, evidence-free escalation signal something more dangerous about Pakistan's strategic mindset right now?
I think the insight lies in the pattern. This isn't just routine posturing. It seems to indicate a deep strategic failure, particularly in managing that western border with Afghanistan. When a nation is so quick to externalize blame for internal terror, it suggests the internal security apparatus is either incapable or perhaps unwilling to really confront the root causes of the problem. Instead, the leadership appears to be leveraging these tragic incidents purely for geopolitical currency. And that risks further regional instability, escalating tensions with two neighbors, India and Afghanistan, simultaneously. It really points to a highly fragile, reactive security environment within Pakistan.
And that fragility, that internal crisis that India alluded to in its rebuttal, it's laid bare by these sweeping legislative changes that have just occurred, focusing on consolidating military control. This takes us to the next major development. Hashtag 4, constitutional consolidation of military power in Pakistan. Okay, let's turn now to what sounds like a constitutional drama, one that signals a potential democratic reversal in Pakistan. The 27th Constitutional Amendment, recently passed by the Senate, seems to dramatically reconfigure Pakistan's power structure, consolidating military authority under Field Marshal Asim Munir.
The structural shift described here is colossal. The amendment redefines the Army chief's role, renaming it the Chief of Defense Forces, or CDF. Now, this might sound like just a bureaucratic change, but it grants the CDF explicit command authority over both the Navy and the Air Force.
Which they didn't have before.
Not explicitly like this. Historically, the three service chiefs have maintained a degree of functional parity, coordination, but separate command. Forcing the Air Force and Navy under the direct command of the Army chief represents a profound centralization of power. And, critically, the sources say it has sparked deep resentment, particularly within the historically more apolitical and, frankly, technologically sophisticated Air Force leadership. They seem resistant to the idea of ground force control dictating air strategy.
And the initial ambition of this proposal was equally alarming, wasn't it? There was talk of lifetime immunity.
Yes, it initially included a provision for lifetime immunity from prosecution for both the Army chief and the sitting prime minister, even after they leave office. Essentially, an attempt to create an eternal legal shield for the top brass and their political allies.
That sounds audacious.
It was. Now, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif did publicly distance himself from that part and ordered the withdrawal of the immunity clause. He claimed it wasn't in the original cabinet draft, but observers are highly skeptical about his lack of prior knowledge.
Why the skepticism?
Well, mainly because of Sharif's recent very close proximity to Munir. They've been traveling together on sensitive foreign visits. The source even points out that Munir conducted independent meetings with foreign dignitaries before joining Sharif on some occasions, suggesting the military, not necessarily the civilian leadership, was dictating the terms of engagement even then. So the denial about the immunity clause seems a bit convenient.
Okay, so beyond the military command structure, the amendment simultaneously executes what looks like a massive assault on the independence of the judiciary. That's a key pillar of any functioning democracy.
This is perhaps the most insidious aspect, yes. The amendment restructures the judiciary by establishing a brand new federal constitutional court, the FCC. This FCC appears designed specifically to rival the existing Supreme Court.
How does it do that?
Well, it mandates that all constitutional cases, these are the most sensitive checks on government power, must now be heard by special benches. And who selects the judges for these critical special benches? A new Judicial Commission of Pakistan, or JCP, which under this amendment is now explicitly dominated by the executive branch.
Okay, so let me get this straight. By controlling the JCP, the executive, which is often, let's be frank, effectively guided by the military of Pakistan, gains the power to essentially handpick the judges who will rule on the constitutionality of their own actions.
Precisely. It systematically strips the Supreme Court of its capacity for impartial review on the most fundamental issues. Critics have been scathing, as you'd expect. The respected Dawn newspaper described these changes bluntly as an obituary for Pakistan's independent judiciary.
Wow.
It essentially preempts any future landmark judicial resistance to military overreach, a strategy that previous civilian governments have sometimes used to challenge military interventions. This new structure ensures the judiciary is structurally subservient to that centralized executive-military nexus.
You mentioned earlier that some analysts suggest Munir's aggressive centralization might actually stem from insecurity, not just strength. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, the analysis suggests this isn't necessarily the confidence of an unchallenged strongman, but perhaps a reaction to fear or perceived internal threats. There are apparently concrete reports of internal dissent resistance from the other two military branches, the Navy and Air Force, and also resentment among some senior Army officers regarding Munir's self-granted tenure extension and this consolidation of power.
Interesting.
So, Field Marshal Munir's actions, including this aggressive constitutional restructuring, might appear designed to cement his power while also silencing potential dissenters, both within the military ranks and in the broader civilian sphere. General Yassin Malik, a former intelligence chief, is quoted warning that these steps risk institutional imbalance and could lead to potential disaster.
So the big picture insight here, then, is that this 27th Amendment is far more than just administrative reform. It looks like a sweeping, decisive move. The political opposition, including Imran Khan's party, rightly views it as a blatant power grab by the military. And it could potentially end Pakistan's current 17-year democratic stretch, which is the longest in its quite troubled history.
And this centralization is happening against a backdrop of profound economic fragility, too. The military's vast holdings in key economic sectors give them significant unstated economic control, which likely fuels and enables this kind of political centralization. It's all interconnected.
Okay, let's transition now from that volatile sphere of regional security and constitutional crises. We'll focus on major internal policy issues within India, starting with the immediate political future of a crucial northern state, Bihar, #tag 5. Exit poll projections for the Bihar Assembly elections. All right, the first exit polls for the 2025 Bihar Assembly elections are out, and they've delivered a potentially decisive forecast. They seem to indicate a very strong, maybe even commanding return for the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA. They're projecting a significantly larger majority than the alliance managed to achieve back in 2020.
Yeah, the numbers suggest a consolidation of power that would be, well, truly significant if the final results actually confirm it. I've got multiple polling agencies, Danic Bhaskar, Matriz ENS's, People's Pulse. They're all forecasting the NDA winning somewhere between 135 and 167 seats. Now, remember, the Assembly has 243 members, so the magic number for a majority is 122.
So hitting the upper end of that forecast, 167 seats, that would be an undeniable landslide, wouldn't it? Getting close to a two-thirds majority.
Absolutely, a huge win if it pans out. Conversely, the opposition, the Magathbandhan or MGB, which is led by the Rashtriya Janata Dal, RJD, they're projected to secure between 70 and 102 seats. That's a clear reversal of fortunes compared to previous elections. Smaller parties and independents seem to have made only a minimal impact according to these initial polls.
What's the political significance here, if these polls hold true?
Well, it seems twofold. First, it would reaffirm Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's enduring political longevity. He's been around for almost 2 decades, despite shifting alliances. Second, and perhaps more importantly for the NDA on a national level, this kind of result would provide significant momentum heading into key state elections scheduled for 2026.
Right.
This projection specifically reverses the outcome of the 2015 election, where the then MGB coalition actually swept to power with 178 seats. So it suggests a major positive shift in public sentiment back towards the NDA in this large, strategically vital state.
We also need to address the performance of new political players. There was a new outfit, Jan Suraj, led by the well-known political strategist Prashant Kishore. They received considerable media attention, ran a pretty high-profile campaign. What do the exit polls say about their impact?
Well, according to these polls, minimal. Almost zero impact on the actual seat tallies. And that's perhaps the specific insight here for political analysts. Prashant Kishore's movement was really predicated on mobilizing grassroots sentiment against the established political structures.
Right, the anti-incumbency factor, perhaps.
Exactly. But if these polls are accurate, it suggests that even well-funded, media-savvy grassroots movements can struggle significantly to translate enthusiasm into tangible electoral success against these deeply entrenched large alliances like the NDA and MGB, at least in the short term. The political landscape of Bihar seems to remain firmly dominated by the established powerhouses for now.
Yet we absolutely have to inject that crucial element of caution here, which is the historical reliability, or sometimes unreliability, of Indian exit polls.
Oh, absolutely. The track record is famously mixed, isn't it? They have accurately predicted major outcomes in the past, but they've also been spectacularly wrong sometimes, missing the final margin by dozens and dozens of seats.
Yeah.
And the situation is complicated further because 2 major and often considered highly accurate pollsters Axis My India and today's Chanakya, they haven't released their forecasts yet as of this report. So while the current data strongly suggests a commanding lead for the NDA and a major political shift, we really must reserve judgment until Friday's final certified count comes in.
Okay, good point. Let's shift now to a dire environmental and public health emergency unfolding in Delhi. #6. Delhi's severe air quality and emergency measures. Delhi's air quality deteriorated rapidly, hitting the severe category on November 11, 2025. This situation required the immediate, forceful implementation of emergency governmental protocols. It's become an almost annual crisis.
Yeah, the data points to an acute crisis yet again. The Central Pollution Control Board, the CPCB, reported Delhi's 24-hour average air quality index, or AQI, reached 428. That's a sharp spike from 362 just the previous day. And an AQI above 400 isn't just bad air, it's officially classed as severe.
Can you just break down what an AQI 428 actually means functionally for, say, a healthy individual versus someone with a pre-existing condition? What does it feel like?
Okay, so at 428, the air pollution level poses serious health risks, even to healthy individuals if they're exposed for prolonged periods. We're talking about microscopic particles, primarily PM2.5 and PM10. The sheer volume of these means even casual exposure can cause respiratory ailments, coughing, shortness of breath, plus rapid fatigue, maybe headaches, and cardiovascular strain.
And for vulnerable groups?
For those with asthma, COPD, heart conditions, or even the very young and elderly, This level is genuinely hazardous. It requires them to remain indoors as much as possible or risk severe, potentially life-threatening exacerbation of their conditions. This level of pollution isn't just an inconvenience, it's an urgent public health disaster unfolding.
And the official response was swift, invoking Stage 3 of the GIA.
Yes. The Commission for Air Quality Management, the CAQM, invoked Stage 3 of the Graded Response Action Plan, or GIA, across the entire National Capital Region, the NCR, not just Delhi City.
What specific mandated restrictions did Stage 3 impose this time?
Stage 3 mandates two massive and quite economically disruptive restrictions. First, a complete and total ban on all non-essential construction and demolition activities across the whole NCR. This halts huge projects and directly impacts millions of daily wage earners.
Huge economic impact there.
Huge. Second, it bans specific older vehicles from the roads. Specifically, BS3 petrol and BSIV diesel four-wheelers are prohibited from operating in Delhi itself, and also in the surrounding major hubs, Gurugram, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, and Gautam Budh Nagar.
That vehicular ban, stretching across state lines, must be a logistical nightmare to enforce across the vast NCR region.
Oh, it is. The NCR is an enormous, interconnected urban sprawl. Enforcing a vehicle-type ban like this requires rigorous, coordinated checkpoint activity across dozens, maybe hundreds, of border points between Delhi, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh. It demands immense interstate cooperation, which isn't always smooth, and it creates immediate public confusion and friction.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It really underscores the point made by Delhi's chief minister, Rekha Gupta, who attributed the spike partly to activities in neighboring cities. The pollution itself, and therefore the enforcement challenge, is fundamentally regional. It doesn't respect administrative boundaries.
And the restrictions even extended down to schools, highlighting the risks particularly to the youngest populations.
Precisely. The TIQM mandated that all classes up to grade 5 must be conducted in hybrid mode, so a mix of online and physical teaching wherever that's feasible. This directive is a direct acknowledgement of the vulnerability of young children whose lungs are still developing.
So what else are they doing?
Well, the administration affirmed they are operating in mission mode, focusing on intensive mitigation efforts on the ground. Things like water sprinkling from tankers to settle dust, widespread dust suppression measures, mechanical road sweeping, intensified garbage collection to prevent burning, and various smoke control measures, trying to physically clear the air as best they can.
Authorities apparently expect a slight improvement, maybe down to the very poor category, by the following day. But the core insight here, isn't it really about what this annual episode reveals about the long-term governance challenge?
Absolutely. The insight is that these reactive emergency measures, however rigorous they are in the moment, are ultimately a failing strategy against a sustained systemic problem. The GRAP protocol, stages 4 to 3-4, they only ever provide short-term temporary relief.
Right, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a recurring wound.
Exactly. This situation just highlights, yet again, the absolute necessity for sustained, coordinated, and often politically difficult long-term regional action. That encompasses everything from controlling industrial emissions across the entire NCR airshed to properly managing agricultural crop stubble burning in neighboring states to accelerating vehicle modernization. Without that systemic approach, the capital seems destined to choke through this life-threatening cycle every single winter.
Okay, let's move now into two different spheres that, despite their vastly different subject matter, both really illustrate how intricate rules, constraints, and strategic balancing govern highly complex systems. We're going to start with the financial tightrope walk of professional cricket in the IPL. #tag7, the IPL trade stalemate. Right, let's discuss the complexities of the Indian Premier League, the IPL transfer window. This is highlighted by a massive, highly anticipated three-way trade involving some huge star players, Ravindra Jadeja, Sanju Samson, and the English all-rounder Sam Curran. But the deal has apparently stalled. It's hit a bureaucratic and financial roadblock that perfectly exemplifies the league's really stringent operating rules.
Yeah, the roadblock centers entirely around one of the teams involved, the Rajasthan Royals, or RR. The initial expression of interest, the EOI, was reportedly initiated by them and Chennai Super Kings, CSK, almost 2 days ago. But the required formal approval request, which has to go to the Board of Control for Cricket in India, BCCI, it hasn't actually been submitted yet. And this delay seems purely procedural, driven entirely by RR's current roster constraints.
And those constraints are twofold, right? There's the overseas player quota and there's their remaining financial purse. We'll start with the quota. How does that work?
Okay, so each IPL team is capped at a maximum of 8 overseas players in their squad. And RR already has its full complement of 8. Jofra Archer, Shimron Hetmeyer, Wanindu Hasaranga, Mahish Dikshana, Fazlak Faruqi, Gwenema Faka, Nandar Burger, and Launder Pretorius. They physically cannot add Sam Curran, who's English, without dropping one of those existing 8 overseas players.
Okay, so that's constraint number 1. What's constraint number 2? The money.
Exactly, the financial calculation. This gets complicated by Sam Curran's high auction value, which is 2.4 crore or 24 million rupees. The problem is, R's remaining purse, the money they have left to spend, is apparently just 30 lakh, 3 million rupees. They're nearly broke in terms of available cash for this trading period.
Wow, okay.
Now, the Jadeja for Samson part of the swap is relatively straightforward. It's an exchange of high-value Indian players, so that doesn't hit the overseas quota or drastically change the finances in the same way. But bringing Curran into the mix necessitates some major cost-cutting by RR.
So the Royals are essentially forced into this complicated maneuver. To make the whole trade financially viable and comply with the overseas player quota, they absolutely must release at least one current overseas player whose contract is worth more than Curran's 2.4 crore. That would free up both the quota slot and the money needed to acquire Curran.
Correct. And this is where the strategic insight really lies, I think. The players RR is reportedly considering releasing to make this happen are their high-value Sri Lankan spinners. Wanindu Hasaranga, who's worth a hefty 5.25 crore, or Mahish Dikshana, worth 4.4 crore.
Okay, but why would a franchise be willing to potentially gut its high-value, possibly match-winning overseas spin attack just to secure these two different players, Samson and Curran?
Well, the strategy seems to be prioritizing the Indian core of the team. Sanju Samson is a star Indian wicketkeeper batsman that's a priceless commodity in the IPL, which mandates a certain number of strong domestic players in the playing action.
Right, the Indian talent is key.
And Ravindra Jadeja is an elite, multi-skilled Indian all-rounder, one of the best in the world. Securing these two players would establish a truly formidable Indian core for the Royals for years to come. It potentially reduces their reliance on the sometimes fluctuating availability or form of overseas talent, which maybe they feel they can acquire or replace in future auctions more easily.
So it's a strategic bet.
It looks like it. The Royals seem to be signaling a long-term commitment to building around a domestic spine, even if it means sacrificing highly valuable, but perhaps in their view replaceable, overseas spin resources in the short term.
It's a perfect illustration of professional sports complexity, isn't it?
Right.
It's not just about fielding the best 11 players on the day. It's about navigating this Byzantine salary cap structure, foreign player limitations, long-term roster balance, future auction strategy. It's a massive puzzle.
Absolutely. And it all rests now on RR's final retention strategy. The final decision is likely delayed until after the November 15th retention deadline, when all the franchises have to formally announce which players they're keeping and which they're releasing. While the sources suggest a reversal of the trade plan is unlikely, the complexity just shows that even deals involving millions of dollars and huge star athletes can be temporarily stopped dead in their tracks by a few administrative rules and, well, a relatively small budget shortfall.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's move now from the highly regulated world of cricket finance to the vast, seemingly unregulated expanse of deep space. #8. Cosmic ray processing of interstellar comet 3I Alice. We're turning our attention now to an interstellar comet named 3I Alice. When it was first discovered, it was hailed as this pristine relic, right? A perfect messenger from another star system, carrying untouched material that could tell us about conditions in distant planetary disks where it formed, but new findings have seriously challenged that foundational assumption.
Yeah, that challenge comes from some really sophisticated spectroscopic observations. These were conducted by NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, the JWST, and also the SPHEREx mission. They detected a distinct chemical anomaly in the comet's coma that's the envelope of gas surrounding the icy nucleus.
What was the anomaly specifically?
They measured the ratio of carbon dioxide, COO, to water, HO, and it was unusually high, 7.6 Linogen 0.3. Now, to put that in context, this ratio is about 4.5 standard deviations above what we typically see in comets that originate here. Within our own solar system, it was way off the charts.
Okay, so if the comet was supposed to be pristine, untouched, what could have caused this abnormal concentration of coheres? It must have been transformed somehow during its journey.
Exactly. That was the puzzle. Scientists initially struggled to explain why an object from a presumably different, distant star system would have such a skewed chemical balance compared to our local comets. The powerful new hypothesis that emerged points to something called galactic cosmic ray, or GCR, processing.
Galactic cosmic rays. What are those?
GCRs are basically high-energy particles, protons, atomic nuclei that originate from violent events like supernovae outside our solar system. They're constantly bombarding objects traveling throughout interstellar space. The theory suggests that over its incredibly long journey, probably multi-billion years between star systems, 3I Atlas was continuously irradiated, just soaked by these cosmic rays.
And what did that constant irradiation physically do to the comet's surface?
Well, the GCRs essentially acted as high-energy catalysts. They penetrated the comet's surface layers and are believed to have converted large amounts of frozen carbon monoxide, CO, which is typically quite abundant in the ice of comets, into carbon dioxide, COQ.
Ah, so it changed the chemistry.
Precisely. And this process, the theory goes, simultaneously formed an irradiated organic-rich crust on the comet's exterior. What's compelling is that laboratory experiments have actually managed to replicate this process. They've shown that GCRs can efficiently transform CO into CO and synthesize these kinds of organic crusts, which closely matches the spectral reddening and the specific chemical composition that astronomers observed in 3I Atlas.
So the chemical signature we're seeing from the coma, the gas boiling off, isn't necessarily the comet's original birth certificate from its home system. It's more like the physical scars of its incredibly harsh journey through interstellar space.
That is the crucial distinction, yes. The comet isn't chemically uniform. While the exterior surface clearly bears these scars of cosmic radiation and is chemically altered by potentially billions of years of exposure, the analysis of the outgassing data, how different ices turn to gas at different distances from the sun, strongly suggests that the comet's deep interior likely remains untouched.
Okay, so the core is still pristine.
The core material is probably still preserved, yes. It likely still reflects its original composition from its distant home star system. But the stuff boiling off first, from the processed outer layers, is what gives us this skewed co-Euro reading.
The implication for, interstellar archaeology seems enormous then. This finding challenges that fundamental assumption that interstellar objects, or ISOs, are always reliable, pristine messengers telling us about distant planetary systems. Astronomers might have to fundamentally recalibrate their whole approach.
Absolutely. We can no longer just look at the surface chemistry or the initial outgassing and assume it's giving us an accurate reading of the conditions in the source system. We now have to try and filter out the history of exposure during the journey from the history of its origin.
That sounds complicated.
It is. It changes how we interpret the composition of potentially all star systems based on the ISOs we detect passing through ours. 3I Atlas is now seen less as a perfect time capsule and more as a cosmic survivor whose exterior composition tells us perhaps more about the harsh physics of interstellar travel than it does about the quiet conditions within its original star's protoplanetary disk.
Fascinating. Okay, from the vastness of cosmic physics, let's dive right into the microscopic complexity of evolutionary biology. Here, the secret to extreme longevity seems to be swimming around in the Arctic Ocean. #9. The bowhead whale's blueprint for longevity. Our final piece of complexity takes us to the bowhead whale. This is a massive Arctic giant. It lives over 200 years, weighs over 80,000 kilograms, and yet it seems to defy one of the deepest puzzles in biology, Peto's paradox.
Yeah, Peto's paradox is this observation, or really this expectation, that cancer risk should scale directly with the number of cells an organism has and the length of its lifespan. I mean, think about it. A creature that lives for 2 centuries and has trillions upon trillions more cells than a human, undergoing countless cell divisions over that time.
It should be riddled with cancer, theoretically.
Theoretically, it should have an astronomically high rate of cancer, just based on the sheer probability of mutations arising during cell division. Yet, the bowhead exhibits remarkable resistance to cancer. So the big question has always been, how on earth do they manage that?
And researchers, in what sounds like a groundbreaking study published in Nature, think they've discovered the mechanism. It's not that their cells are somehow immune to DNA damage happening. It's that they are radically superior at fixing that damage once it occurs.
That's the key finding. Their cells are far more efficient at repairing DNA damage than typical mammalian cells, like ours. And they specifically excel at repairing double-strand breaks. These are scientifically considered the most lethal type of genetic damage, the hardest ones to fix correctly.
So they have highly effective internal repair crew.
Essentially, yes. They excel in both of the major DNA repair pathways, non-homologous end joining and homologous recombination. But the key seems to be the quality of the repair.
Can you break down that difference in repair quality versus, say, human cells? Is the whale's enzyme just faster, or is it fundamentally more accurate?
It appears to be significantly more accurate and robust. In human cells, DNA repair, especially for double-strand breaks, often involves some level of error. A small mutation might get introduced during the fix, or sometimes the cell just gives up and triggers apoptosis, programmed cell death, to prevent a potentially cancerous mutation from spreading.
Right. Kill the damaged cell to save the organism.
Exactly. But the bowhead whale's evolutionary breakthrough seems to be prioritizing highly accurate repair over either error-prone repair or just self-destruction. This focus on preserving tissue integrity, fixing the damage perfectly, seems central to its exceptional longevity and disease resistance. The whale doesn't just eliminate damaged cells nearly as often, it fixes them, and fixes them well.
And the central player identified in this biological marvel is a specific protein called cold-inducible RNA-binding protein, or CIRBP.
Yes, CIRBP. It's found in unusually high quantities in bowhead whale cells compared to other mammals, and it seems to act as a kind of molecular stabilizer, or chaperone. Think of it maybe as a specialized traffic cop that precisely guides the actual repair enzymes the construction crew directly and quickly to the site of the damaged DNA.
So it speeds up the process and makes it more accurate.
It seems to enhance the efficiency and fidelity. This targeted efficiency minimizes the time the dangerous DNA break is exposed and significantly increases the chance of an error-free repair being completed.
Now, this research then moved beyond just observing the whale into actual application, which sounds truly incredible.
It is really exciting. The scientists actually introduced the whale version of the CIRBP gene into human cells in the lab. The results were astounding. It significantly enhanced the human cell's own DNA repair accuracy. It reduced the frequency of chromosomal abnormalities, which are often precursors to cancer, and it successfully slowed down malignant transformation in those cell lines.
Wow.
They even saw related positive effects when they overexpressed CIRBP in fruit flies, things like extended lifespan and improved resistance to radiation damage. It really offers a radical new blueprint for potential medical interventions down the line.
So the core insight here, then, is that the solution to major human diseases like cancer might not lie solely in conventional therapies that aim to destroy cancerous cells, but maybe in developing completely new strategies to simply enhance our body's own natural internal repair systems, making them as accurate and efficient as the bowhead whales seem to be.
That's the promise, yes. And there's also a fascinating potential environmental link here, too. CIRBP levels, as the name suggests, are observed to increase under conditions of cold stress. This suggests that environmental factors, like the cold Arctic temperatures the whale lives in, may actually trigger or enhance these robust cellular repair mechanisms.
So the environment helped shape the solution.
It implies that the whale's very ability to thrive in the extreme cold of the Arctic might be intrinsically linked, biochemically, to its remarkable resistance to disease and aging. It provides a profound model for potentially developing future cancer prevention strategies centered not on killing cells, but on enhancing genome stability and maintenance. #outro.
Looking back over the sheer range of material we've synthesized today, it's really quite remarkable, isn't it? We started with the very real immediate threat of domestic instability, that high-stakes arrest of a white-collar terror suspect allegedly organizing a sophisticated network right within India. And then we moved quickly to that existential constitutional power struggle playing out in Pakistan, threatening its whole democratic foundation.
Yeah, huge spectrum. We dissected the intricate balance sheets and the strategic motivations behind that logistical quagmire of a multi-million-dollar IPL cricket trade. We analyzed how invisible galactic cosmic rays are permanently altering the chemical fingerprint of interstellar objects traveling between stars.
Right.
And we finished with that profound biological lesson from the bowhead whale, this creature that seems to have mastered the art of cellular survival and repair over immense timescales.
What really stands out when you try to synthesize these totally disparate headlines is how success, or maybe just stability, in any complex system seems ultimately governed by similar principles: constraints, balance, adaptation. Whether it's a political constitution, a complex financial roster for a sports team, or even a single cell's DNA, stability seems to hinge on the efficiency of the internal system to manage stress and, crucially, repair damage.
That's a great point if we connect this to the bigger picture. What's truly fascinating here is how the largest biological challenges we face, things like cancer and aging, might eventually be solved not by more aggressive interventions, but by enhancing fundamental internal processes like repair and maintenance. It requires systemic stability right down at the micro level.
Hmm.
Conversely, we see political systems facing similar kinds of stress, but often prioritizing conflict and aggressive centralization, which feels like the very antithesis of internal repair, doesn't it?
It does. That structural imbalance in the political sphere, especially in the regions we discussed, leads us neatly to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. We've seen today that organisms like the bowhead whale achieve exceptional longevity and survival by maximizing internal repair and stability, focusing on fixing what's broken before it becomes catastrophic.
Right, the prevention through maintenance approach.
Exactly. Whereas political systems often seem to prioritize conflict and reaction, externalizing blame, aggressively centralizing power rather than focusing on fundamental systemic repair.
So, considering the profound internal instability we've covered today, particularly in South Asia, could national security itself, perhaps counterintuitively, benefit from adopting a true repair over removal philosophy? Could focusing on long-term institutional stability, addressing core systemic flaws like military overreach or judicial capture, strengthening democratic foundations actually be more effective in the long run?
Rather than relying solely on an aggressive short-term crisis response
Yeah.
and constantly externalizing blame.
Precisely. That deep institutional repair is often the hardest path, the slowest, the least politically rewarding in the short term. But maybe, like for the bowhead whale, it's the most necessary step for true long-term survival and stability. Something to think about.